And I'm chair of the Institute of Fundraising South East and London region. We are a group of very enthusiastic volunteers and we are totally committed to delivering high quality yet inexpensive training and networking opportunities to fundraisers in our region. We're always looking for new people to join us, so if you fancy getting involved, then do chat to one of the committee afterwards. Committee, can you make yourselves known, please? There we go. So come and chat to one of us, and the other giveaway is that we've got the big red shouty "Speak to Me" sign on our badges, so do come up afterwards. There's a few people, I think, tonight who aren't yet members of the Institute. I'd urge you to become a member, please. It's very inexpensive. It's about £8.67 to be precise every month. You pay it monthly. So what's that, like the price of 2 Pret sandwiches, maybe one really fancy pants one. It's not huge. And you get great benefits. You get fundraising magazine delivered to your door once a month. You get substantial discounts of training, and you get £5 off these wonderful events. So what's not to like? We would love it if you could tweet about tonight. The hashtag is #RFThursday. The Wi-Fi details are up there. And you'll also notice that we are filming tonight. We meant to say filming. So if anybody's uncomfortable about filming and having their 15 minutes of fame, then just let us know afterwards and make sure that we don't feature your face in the video. The last thing for me to do is to thank our wonderful sponsors, without whom we could not put on these events for such a low ticket price. So we have 2 sponsors. We have Sappho, who are the major digital online raffle providers, and we have wonderful Eden Brown, who are the best recruitment agency in the sector. And tonight we have Tony Williams at the back and Vicky from Eden Brown. So if you are thinking of changing roles or if you're thinking of growing your team, then do chat to them afterwards. I'm now going to hand over to Vicky, who's going to introduce our speaker.
Hiya, so I'm Vicky, I work at Eden Brown Charities, and we are a charity and not-for-profit specialist recruitment agency. So if you are looking for some career advice, etc., myself and my colleague Tony will be at the bar, mainly, most of the night. And now I'm going to obviously introduce the speaker. So today's session is In Memory Giving, a case study from the Stroke Association. So in 2018, the Stroke Association put a focus on in memory giving and created a head of in memory role. Hannah Ennis, head of in memory at the Stroke Association, will be speaking about everything that took place in the first 12 months in this role. So we can give it up, Hannah. You've got your own microphone. Perfect.
So I'm head of in-memory giving and celebration giving at the Stroke Association. Put my slides on. Here we go. There we go. So I'm going to be reflecting a little bit on the last 18 months. We've gone through quite a big change when it comes to in-men. We have had a bit of a culture change and how we think about our in-men supporters. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through what we did and what worked well and what didn't work very well. So it all started with a new direction. So in early 2018, the Stroke Association was going through a strategic change, a little bit of a restructure. We had a new fundraising director, and within this restructure, in men became a bit more of a strategic focus. So we highlighted in men as an area of growth. So it was a strategic decision to kind of looking at all of our audiences. We decided that one of the ones we would invest in was in memory giving because it had a really high potential to increase. And after that decision was made, we went through a bit of a restructure. So I'm sure in men sits in a different area within all of your organisations. Historically at the Stroke Association, it's sat within individual giving. So there was a bit of a discussion about where it would be best sat. Legacies was mentioned, regional fundraising was mentioned, but also it was talked about staying in individual individual giving. And it moved to regional fundraising. So I sit within the regional fundraising team, and the reason we did that was because we felt that our regional fundraisers were the best place to build really high quality relationships out in the regions and from the ground level. So once we had moved it to regional fundraising, there was also a few other changes to do with the restructure. We moved all of our admin centrally, so all of our thanking and banking and communication with our supporters around donations and things like that was moved to our supporter care team, who sit in Northampton, and that was a new team. So it was taken out of the regional offices and put into one central place. And my role was created, so the strategic head of role was created, and I joined the team, and that role really focuses on doing everything possible to achieve substantial income growth. So yeah, that was the next point. Before I joined, quite ambitious targets were set, so it was targeted for the income to double in the next 5 years. So when I joined in 2018, there was the expectation that by 2023 we'd be raising twice as much through InMem. And with that, there was also an increase in investment. So we had additional budget to enable us to do the things we needed to do to achieve that income growth. So it wasn't a massive amount, but it was enough for us to kind of get the ball rolling and test a few things. So I joined the team last summer, and this is kind of the journey that we've been on. So my strategy was to start with insight and learn as much as possible about our InMem audience and about the sector. We then developed a proposition, worked on internal engagement, and then since then we've had a really big focus on products and innovation as well as stewardship. So what I'm going to do this evening is just take you through each of those areas and explain a little bit about what we did. So, insight. So towards the end of 2018 and the start of 2019, most of my time and energy was spent on gathering as much insight as possible to build our strategy. And we did that in quite a few different ways. So put the main ones up here. We started by joining the Legacy Foresight in Memory Group. I don't know how many people here are also a member, but when we joined, we gained access to the current year's research, but also the previous 5 years. So we were able to digest all of that research. We found it really useful actually, and it really formed a good foundation to start the rest of our insight and also make some really key learnings about the sector. We then also spent quite a substantial time looking at our internal data. So I think like every organisation, we have quite a few challenges with our database, but we really spent time digging through the data and trying to make as many learnings as possible. Things like a history of giving, everything we could link to InMem, and learning a bit more about the patterns of giving around our InMem audience. We also looked at things like where is the most crossover, what's been happening organically and naturally for the last few years. We then moved on to external data. So we used things that we already had internally. So we looked at stroke mortality and stroke prevalence in a different way, and trying to match it up with our patterns of giving. And then we also looked at some charity benchmarking that we already had internally but we hadn't used in an InMem way. So both of those things were really helpful. We also reached out and gathered some funeral director research, which was again really helpful and enabled us to learn a bit more about that external audience. So once we had done as much as we could internally, we then kind of decided that we were going to do our own insight piece. And I think of everything I'm going to talk to you about today, this is probably the thing that was most beneficial. Really has been the base level of everything we've done and has really kind of fed into all the decisions and projects we've had since. So our supported insight was split between surveys and telephone interviews. So we worked with Consider and we launched a survey to all of our consenting InMem supporters by email. So we sent that out, and then we also arranged for around 20 telephone interviews with warm InMem supporters. And the data we gathered from that was really, really rich. We're really grateful for the supporters for giving us their time. I think the calls varied between like 45 minutes and an hour and a half, so they really did give us a lot of information. Talked heavily about their motivations and what their in-memory support meant to them and what we could be doing as a charity to improve their experience. So that was really, really helpful. The survey was also really valuable in terms of kind of math feelings. So we learned some valuable things. So one of the things we learned was that our supporters trust that we spend our money, but they don't know how we spend it. So little things like that have really structured what we've done since and kind of built towards what kind of content we've shared. And then lastly, we kind of mirrored our supporter insight with our funeral director audience. So I think we have about 4,000 contactable funeral directors on our records. So we went out to them, not many of them consent to email, but we went out to those who did and talked to them both through the survey, but also I think we had about 5 face-to-face interviews with them in the end, and again we got some really rich insight from them. That was our insight. You can ask me questions at any time, by the way, so don't feel free to put your hand up and ask, but I'll just, if there aren't any at this point, I'll just move on. So once we had our insight and we were happy with the level of insight that we had, and we kind of exhausted all areas, we moved on to building a proposition. So this was really important to us, obviously in terms of kind of creating a look and feel for in-memory giving at the Stroke Association, but also because there was a tiny bit of a clash between our main brand and our in-memory audience, and that came out in the inside source of it. So our main brand slogan is Rebuilding Lives After Stroke, but what came out in our interviews is that many of our supporters couldn't really connect with that because they'd lost someone to stroke and they didn't know about rebuilding life after stroke. So that kind of fueled us even more to get a really strong proposition together. So again, we worked with Consider on this. It was a really collaborative piece of work between Consider, our supporters, and also internal teams at the Stroke Association. We really wanted something that represented how our audience felt and how they told us they felt. And we came up with this. So the top image is our one page on our proposition, and the key line is that stroke can change our lives and take away those we love, but the story of their life can live on. And that was because it really came through to us that people wanted to share their stories and share their experiences. They wanted to almost build a community with other people who've lost people to stroke. And yeah, we're really happy with that, and it's kind of coming to life in a lot of the editorial pieces that we've done since. The other thing to note is that we encouraged our supporters to kind of feed into it, so the colour scheme, the language used, the style of photography was all kind of built from insight and also run past a couple of our supporters as well, so we gave them the opportunity to feed back again on this, and they really helped shape the language that we used. So that was our proposition. Once we kind of had our insight nailed and we were happy with the proposition, I then spent quite a lot of time thinking about building the culture that we wanted to have for In Men at the Stroke Association and spending a lot of time on internal engagement. So, as I said, my role sits within the regional team, and that's where we're focusing our In Men strategy. And we're all dispersed, so we're all over the UK. I actually am based in Glasgow and the team are all over. So one of the first things I did was just really try to build relationships with them on a kind of personal level and get to know them and change some of the, I don't want to say kind of mistruths, but there was quite a lot of myths around In Men, and there was the idea that In Men just meant funeral collections and just meant funeral donations, and we were really trying to change it so that actually no, it's a motivation, and almost every audience at the Stroke Association as a health charity is In Men. So internal engagement wise, after kind of getting to know the team over 6 months or so, we launched our In Men training. So I'm just going to have to fiddle with my papers. couldn't remember the stats, so I need this one. But yeah, so we put together a training, and it was a really good day. We did 4 sessions across the UK. We split the day, so the morning was focused on bereavement and fundraising, and the psychology of bereavement and what is a fundraiser who's potentially bereaved feeling and thinking. And that was really, really beneficial. We had Kevin Kibble's help with that, if any of you know him. And then in the second half of the day, it was very informative and instructional, and it was really about clearly setting the direction that we were going in. And we wanted to be able to measure the success of this training. So before and after, we distributed surveys to the team, and they were compulsory. So I'm just going to read some stats for you. Before the training, only 34% of the team felt that they understood InMem well. Only 46% said they felt comfortable speaking to an InMem supporter, and only 19% felt they understood what their role was within in-memory fundraising. So quite kind of didn't fill me with masses of confidence even. But after the training, I'm really pleased to say that 91% reported they found the training day to be very helpful. 87% said they now felt very comfortable communicating and stewarding in-mem supporters, and 75% said they fully understood what their role was within them. So it's quite a stark difference. So there's still a little bit of room to go and to improve, and since then we've followed up in team meetings, things like that. But yeah, the training was really, really rewarding. It was great to kind of have everyone super engaged and have someone's time for a whole day, which is quite a luxury. And yeah, we then built, with Consider, we worked on an internal guide. So we wanted the guide to really complement the training that we had, and everyone within the support care team and regional fundraising has a guide, kind of takes them through the structure of InMem, how we talk about it, how we steward our supporters, and there's also exercises in there that the teams took away and the managers built into their team agenda. So it's something they've continued to work on. So that top image is just the front cover of our guide. So it was all in line with the proposition. It looked great, and I think it was quite kind of an authoritative way to put a stamp on what InMem is at the Stroke Association. And since then, it's been quite a good tool to give to new starters and people who have joined the team since the training. So we had the training and the internal guide, and I think possibly the most challenging part of building a culture of InMem at the Stroke Association has been influencing other teams. So obviously we know we get funeral collections and tribute funds and donations, but we also know quite a substantial chunk of our regular givers, our major donors, and our pledgers are also motivated by InMem. So something I've been doing is spending a lot of time mirroring what we've gone through with the regional fundraising team, with other members of the organisation, and really trying to build that consistent experience across the charity, so that it doesn't really matter how you support us, you still go through kind of a recognisable InMem experience. So, yeah, it was. We actually had a physical guide that I took with the training and I give to every new starter, but we also had a digital version. So with the digital version, the links were live and things like that, so it's quite interactive. And we saved that on our SharePoint and also on our normal drive. So everyone within the directorate has a link to that, and it's also shared with the wider teams as well as a point of reference. Yeah. And I think that's a good tool, especially with our regional fundraisers being here, there and everywhere. It's quite good that they can access it wherever they are. Yeah.
What training did you use?
The bereavement side of things. So have any of you worked with Kevin Kibble? I can't remember the name of the charity he works at currently, but someone actually who had joined the team from, I think, Diabetes UK, recommended him, and then I spoke to him, and I really wanted it to kind of come from someone else, so it felt that there was a level of authority there, and they kind of felt that we were really talking to an InMem expert. So he is the CEO of a private charity based in London that helps children with bereavement. But he's worked in men for I think about 30 years, and I think he was part of building like the first ever tribute fund. So he's really kind of it's ingrained in his whole career, and it went down really well. It was very much focused on kind of the psychology of bereavement, how it affects people's experience when they fundraise. So yeah. Are there any other questions? Or should I move on? Okay. Oh.
You might come on to it, sorry if you do. But you talked about in-men not just being, and then you gave a couple of examples. You're going to talk through the different types of in-men giving, just for give us a sort of context about the scope of what you're just saying.
Yeah, so I've not got it on any of the slides, but I'm happy to kind of do a really top line. So part of the strategy actually, when I built our strategy for in-men, was I decided to split the group. So I have what we call core in-men, and then we have wider in-men. Core in-men is essentially anything that gets fed into my income line. So I have a central pot, and all the regional fundraisers work to bring in that income, and then it gets kind of reported on by region. And that includes funeral collections, donations, any kind of online giving that is in men, so tribute fund pages, remembrance pages, and just giving in men pages, unless it's an event. So yeah, that really actually does make up all of my income stream. But as I spent a bit more time in the role, kind of probably towards the end of the first month, I realised it was quite a lot, we need to look a lot larger than that. So within the wider in-men group is our events, our major givers, our regular givers, our lottery players, our rafflers, our corporate partners, that's a really important one, and our legacy info requesters and pledgers. So the easiest way to describe it is just everyone else. But yeah, and that's kind of how I've chosen to structure it, just because I think it makes it easy when I'm communicating with regional fundraising. And it kind of gets rid of that question of why you're interfering with how we steward our London Marathon runners, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Anything else? Okay. So products and innovation. Once I kind of felt really confident that the team really had adapted to our new way of thinking, the culture had started to shift, they were really being a lot more proactive and positive about it after a period of a lot of restructure and change. I started to look a lot closer at creating new income streams, developing new products, and innovating. So I didn't mean for this to happen, so I'm just going to put them all up. The first thing we tested was what I called calendar-focused events, so things that we had never really had campaigns, we'd never had in-men campaigns before. So my first starting point was kind of focusing on those key times of the year when we knew people gave in memory. So for us, that was Christmas, Mother's Day and Father's Day was our starting point. So an example of one was our Mother's Day campaign. It was very much case study led. It was about an amazing family who had raised a huge amount of money, over £30,000 in memory of their mum. And that was the centre of our Mother's Day campaign. It was a digital campaign, so it sat on Facebook and linked everyone through to our online giving donation funnel. And it was a really mixed result actually. This is kind of why I put testing and learning in the centre, is that not all of these went perfectly well. Our Mother's Day campaign actually brought in less income than had been predicted, and our average gift was a bit lower than expected. But what it did do is it had a knock-on effect on our wider giving. So that year we received 32% more over the Mother's Day weekend in income than we ever had before, and 150% more in terms of online donations. So it definitely had an impact. It just wasn't in the way that we had kind of hoped for or necessarily planned. But we took a lot of learnings from that, and all of our campaigns that have had a digital side to them since have really taken on those learnings. We also tested what I called kind of trading campaigns, or we could call them transactional, so when we're giving something in return for a donation. The first time we tested that was Christmas 2018, when we gifted our highest potential in-men supporters of an in-men product. It was a Christmas decoration. And we also have kind of built on that for this year's campaign. It's a trading campaign as well. And again, we learnt masses from that. We actually advertised our surplus stock of 500 Christmas decorations on Facebook, and they went within a few hours. So we know that there's definitely a demand there for it. Very much surprising. I had planned for 2 weeks worth of adverts. But yeah, it went within the day. So there's definitely a demand there. The thing that we need to improve on next time is what that journey looks like after they requested that decoration, and what can we do to really make the most of acquiring them and having them on our database. We have in the corner tribute funds, so I'm sure all of you who work on InMem think about remembrance dates and tribute funds quite a lot. When I first started, we sat down and looked at all of our data and really kind of went through what we tried to work out what was happening, and we kind of found that our supporters were mainly using the platforms that we had partnerships with for funeral giving, which is amazing. It makes up a really substantial chunk of our income. But with our new strategy focused on relationship building, we really wanted to kind of see what the best option out there was for us to have a platform that enabled us to build these close relationships. So we have gone with a new tribute fund platform, it's fully branded. We're in control of the experience that supporter goes on. There'll be a lot more touch points for our regional team, so it'll really be kind of a, hopefully, seamless journey where they know their contact from supporter care when they need to, but the person who's kind of looking after them is their local regional fundraiser. And it speaks to our database a bit differently as well, so we're able to pull a bit more insight and stats from it. So that is launching at the end of this month. And then the last point is just lots more to come. So what we have done in the last 18 months is definitely just a starting point. From the few campaigns that we have run, we've learned masses, and it was definitely having that culture of testing and learning and not being afraid for things to not go well, and just really using it as a time to learn as much as possible. So yes, in the new year we have 3 projects that are going to be new, and they're kind of varying size and audience, so we're quite excited about that. Any questions here? Okay. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is stewardship. So I think I've mentioned relationship building probably on more times than I can count in 2 hands. But stewardship and relationship building really have been at the centre of everything we've done. We've really tried to start afresh, so from thinking about how our regional fundraisers worked with people who had arranged funeral collections and not really thinking about much else, we've really tried to kind of have a new approach. And the way we've done that is through learnings from our insights. So these 5 circles up here were a key learning from our insight, and it kind of was the 5 things that were picked out of what our supporters wanted. We then built them into our training. We gave our supporters a really specific way of, well, best practice really when engaging with InMem supporters. We have the InMem 10, so 10 ways to give a really excellent experience to the supporter and build that relationship. And everything we're doing, we're really trying to encourage them to establish a relationship that enables repeat giving and helps build lifetime value, with the aim of it eventually hopefully leading to a pledge. So whilst that's been going on, we've also been developing the supporter journeys. So when I started, and historically, the experience in InMem supporter has been that they receive a thank you letter and they don't receive anything else other than our Christmas appeal. So what we've tried to do is really build a supporter experience and journey from the national team, from me, that gives everything they ask for in our insight. So it's really about providing the content and the information that they want, really explaining where their money's going, and what we're doing to help people who've been affected by stroke. We've taken a lot more of a focus on motivation, so all of the stewardship rules in the guide and on the training day. It doesn't just apply to when they're talking to someone who's kind of doing something really easily, located stores, or as in men. So if someone is a corporate partner and they're doing it because 3 years ago they lost a colleague to stroke, then we need to apply some of the bits of our stewardship technique to that relationship in order for repeat giving and relationship building. Like I said, we've definitely had challenges with data. So one of the things we struggle is with recording motivation. So for a couple of our audiences, we can't record their motivation if they're in men, if they tell us conversationally, apart from in kind of a way that's not reportable. So that's been a bit of a big challenge. But we're really overcoming them. We're focusing a lot more on pulling reports on what we can do. One of the things that was fed back to me in my first month is that since everything went to supported care, we don't have as much oversight. So if someone does have a funeral collection that they were obviously meant to lots of their community because a lot was raised, they would never know about it because now supported care are looking after it. So we've had to build a lot more reports and really kind of integrate every different area through data. And the last thing on there is improvements of thanking. So in the last 12 months we've made some improvements, but it's still not where we'd like it to be. So we're really trying to be as personal as possible and a bit more creative when needed. So we're really trying to focus on how we can improve our thanking. So any questions on stewardship? I'll move on to the next slide. So the next 18 months. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm going to share our budget, but it was definitely a lot larger than we'd had in the past, so probably about 3 times the size of our previous budget, but we haven't been doing a lot before. Our ROI is something that we actually haven't had locked down, so we've got it for our tribute funds, and we know when we want to, because we've paid to set up our new tribute funds, and we know when we expect to have made the return on that, and we know what we want our average page to raise, and what increase it is from the pages that out there that we have used historically. But we actually don't have any, I mean, for all of our campaigns we've had ROI that would have been desirable. For those 2 that I mentioned, we didn't hit them. So it's kind of something that we have been definitely doing and hoping to achieve, but so far on some of the campaigns we definitely haven't received the level of income that we hoped for. It's because we realised we've been doing things a little bit wrong. But yeah. So I'm happy to chat afterwards if you want to. Any other questions? Okay, so the next 18 months. One thing I will say is we've only got our increase in budget for the first 3 years of the 5-year strategy. So we are really trying to get in as much testing and learning as we can in the next 2 financial years. So we'll definitely be continuing to launch new products and income streams. There'll be, like I said, really different audiences, and that's really exciting. We are going to be focusing on funeral directors in the new year a lot. We're going to kind of be taking a step back, re-evaluating how we engage with them, and building a bit more of a consistent strategy, working with the corporate partnership team and the regional fundraising team. We'll also be doing a lot more storytelling, so something that has been quite time consuming but definitely so worthwhile is generating in-men case study content. So we had absolutely no case studies that were in-men focused. If they were, we were very much about the stroke support side of things, so our services that we provide, and less so about fundraising. So one of the things we've been doing is really trying to generate editorial as well as photographs and video content for our storytelling. And I think next year we're going to try and be a bit more creative about how when we have generated that content, how we're using it. And then finally, making the connection between in-men and legacies is going to be a really big project for us next year. I know that some of you are in the Legacy Foresight Learning Circle, and so you'll have the insight from last year. But we're just kind of thinking about how can we implement that insight? What can we do to really make the most of the strong connection that our online supporters have with us and encourage them to leave a gift in their will? So that's everything we've got to look forward to for the next year. It's going to be a busy 18 months, but hopefully it will be as rewarding as the last. So that is everything I was going to take through today. Does anyone have any overall questions?
So, what's the program
So we have an email journey.
Hannah, can we just repeat the question?
What's the new in-mem journey, welcome journey for someone who's made a first time in-mem gift?
So if they consent to email, they will go on an email journey that is over 24 months, but it's not every month. And it's a mixture of different content there, so some of our case study content, some of our cause-related content, and also some cross-sells to hopefully incite repeat giving. We also, for everyone who doesn't consent, because of our GDPR policy, we are going with a lot more stripped back direct mail journey. So everyone who makes an in-man gift will receive a journey over 12 months of 3 mailings. So quite simple mailings, not kind of a pack or anything like that. We actually, in our insights, we had a lot of insight about how they would like to receive materials, and one of the key messages was they didn't want to look really expensive, so we'll be keeping that in mind. And yeah, so that's what we have planned. So it will definitely be, it's an emerging support journey, so it'll be changing as we go. We also have a separate journey for everyone who sets up a treatment fund as well. So that's one thing we've been really trying to do, is actually just talk to them more, because that was the thing a lot of them said to us. Some people have said that we've raised over £5,000 and we've never really heard much from you. So it's something we're going to be consistently reporting on and changing as we see fit. But yeah, that's what we have planned at the moment.
With them in men, it's often called like in men celebration. I was just wondering, do you consider celebration giving that's not in men part of the same project, like wedding giving and birthdays and stuff? Does that come into your in men strategy, or is that a whole separate thing for the way you work?
Great question. So my role is in men and celebration, but actually for our strategy we have split them. So our celebration strategy is a lot more in its infancy. It hasn't been developed in the same way that man has. But it's not to say we're not working on projects. So we're treating it as a different income stream, has its own income pot. And we are giving them a different experience. But what we are doing is considering motivation. So if we have wedding products, we're asking them why they've chosen to kind of include the Stroke Association in their wedding celebrations. If the answer is in men, then they'll be stewarded along with our in-men stewardship. So we definitely know they're interlinked the same with kind of Facebook, I'm sure for everyone, Facebook fundraisers is a thing we've had to really react to over the past couple of years, because it's predominantly birthday fundraising that falls within my remit. And we've really had to think about how can we, especially with that one actually, how can we tap into what the motivation for giving is there when it's not we're not necessarily told, and it definitely doesn't pull through to our database. So yeah, we do treat them separately. They are separate income streams and areas of fundraising, but the reason why they've both been kind of put under my remit is because we're really aware of the crossover and how they interlink.
Hi, for people who are doing challenge events in memory of someone, you kind of touched on this, would they follow your journey, or would it be sort of a different journey that they
So again, really good question. And I want to I don't want to focus on the negative, but we experience quite a lot of challenges around that because historically we haven't captured motivation. So on like a person-to-person relationship, our fundraisers can talk to our supporters about their motivation. It wouldn't necessarily pull through to their supporter journey or anything like that. So one of the things we've started to do is when someone registers for an event, we capture their motivation now. And in the future, not at the moment, unfortunately, they will receive a bespoke journey. So